100 headlines in 100 days. One, that's like a massive undertaking. Like to write 100 headlines once, like one headline a day for 100 days seems like a lot of work. To write 100 every day.
Yeah. It was 10,211 headlines. Every day I had to write 100 headlines and post a blog about it. So I was always a few days ahead of where I was posting. So it gave me time to, just like format things and do that. But it was 3 to 4 hours every day between writing and posting. It was exhausting. And honestly, I don't recommend it. The way that I did it, I didn't take breaks. I didn't take weekends off. It was not good for my family. It was like the beginning of the end of trust and things like that. I focused on the wrong things. I don't recommend doing it the way that I did it. Challenges are great, but I've written about this before. Like if I were to do it again, I would absolutely do it different. People say like, I want to do a project like this. I said, cool, read my post first, learn from my mistakes, and then decide if you want to do it. To the best of my knowledge, no one has done it since. They're smarter than I was. I was too dumb to say no, basically. But
what would you have done?
Well, it's not that I would have done it. I would have taken weekends off. I would have probably changed the amount of time. Like people didn't really care. So the truth is it actually took 108 days because I was 8 days ahead. And at certain points I cashed in a day where I didn't write, but I still posted. So
right.
Those days I needed for my sanity. But like it got to the point where like on weekends, my kids were little at this time. And my wife, who's now my ex-wife, would originally say like, hey, we're going to the park. Do you want to come? And I would say, no, I need to write my headlines. So they would go to the park on the weekends and I would stay home and write. That was part of the reason why she is now my ex-wife. I made tremendous mistakes at that point. It's not the reason why we got divorced, but it was the beginning of the end. I started focusing on me rather than the family. Not to get too personal here, but like I kept saying that like I was doing this for them because like I want to build something for them. I wasn't. It was selfish. I did it for me. This is what years of therapy later has taught me. Like looking back on it, I know a lot of mistakes. So I'll be candid about that. I've written about that. I don't want to be known as the guy who, destroyed his marriage because of the headline project. That's not what it was. But it did show me that my priorities weren't in line with what a good husband should be. And I've learned a lot from then, a lot of corrections. My kids are great. My relationship with my ex is great. In great relationship now. So it all worked out the way that it should have. But I regret the effort that I put in building my name and focusing on the wrong thing when it should have been spent on family.
I think a lot of us feel that feeling, which is we tell ourselves we're doing this for them. I mean, I'm very guilty of this. Early on, when I went out on my own, working a boatload, up early, do the thing with the kids, see the wife, then back to work, like working late, up, go to bed, like kind of just on this repeat cycle. And after a few months, my wife is incredibly supportive of me trying to do this thing, especially then. And at some point she had to tell me, she was like, the answers aren't in your screen. And that was a very eye-opening moment. And I think because I told myself, like, I'm doing all this like for you. And at the time we had one young 9-month-old son, and now we have 2, but like it's like all of this is to help build, like support the family. Like I'm working so hard, but I think what you are talking about, which is like, yes, it's for that, but there's a lot of ego that drives that ambition. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. Like I joke that with people, you don't have to be crazy to do this work, but it helps because you got to be a little irrational to keep going, to be an entrepreneur in any capacity. And I think what you're describing, all I have to say is I totally relate with what you're describing, in that in order to admit that it is a selfish thing, it's not that there's anything necessarily wrong with that, but to just call it what it is extremely powerful, because I went through it in my own way. And I know a lot of people who continue to go through that, and it's really hard to balance.
Yeah.
How did you work through that? What was your process?
So figuring out where the balance was,
Yeah, just because it's not like one day you decide like, well, you just stop working. I mean, maybe you did. I don't know. Like I said, my wife, like me, she said, the answers are not in your monitor.
Yeah.
And for me, it was, if you create the space in your life for your mind to wander a little bit and think differently, you'll create a different outcome. And for me, that worked. But I'm curious what worked. Like, what was it for you?
So it was a lot of therapy, honestly. And it was a lot of mindset work. I've worked with a few different mindset coaches. Linda Perry was the one who helped me put in a lot of boundaries as to understand what my motivations were and what I was doing wrong. I've worked with Brian McCarthy as well. And he was more about sort of understanding some of my internal motivations and things like that. And it was just sort of figuring out who I was, the way that I wanted to show up, and then dealing with it, working with an actual therapist on understanding who I was and beginning to like myself, but also realize how the outward projection of that was selfish. So that was the biggest thing. Was mindset and therapy, honestly, were the biggest things. And I cannot recommend that enough to people who are going through stuff, because it is selfish, and it's okay that it's selfish. But as you're saying, it's cruel to pretend that it's not. Like, challenges inherently are selfish. It's about proving that you can do something. It's about showing the world that you can do something. It's showing off. It's proving to yourself that you are the type of person who can do certain things. But it's also proof that you can do something other people can't. And that's your internal motivation. Creating a business is hard. Most fail. We want to prove that we can do something. But it is selfish.